Hello everyone.
Hi.
This is reading time. I'm John and this is Samuel, and tonight we're reading Khmer Legends by Damaz Tep Baker.
You haven't met my dad in our videos much because he's not really that free that much often.
But I am free now. So let's begin. Tonight we're going to be reading a story called Neang Korng Reiy Mountain, or as it says in Khmer, Phnom Neang Korng Reiy. The province of Phnom Neang is very well known for its famous mountains that rise majestically on the bank of the river, a tributary of Tonle Sap, or Great Lake. To reach the river, one can either ride a bicycle, take a pedicab, or drive to the lower market called Sar Kron. From there, you can see the two mountains covered by thick vegetation, side by side across the river. On the lower valley of the mountains, a special aromatic herb cumin, or in Khmer, ma am, grows in abundance. In other parts of Cambodia, this cumin, or ma am, is very much sought after to enhance the taste of special sour soup samlar ma chu. However, Kampong Chnang's inhabitants do not use this herb because it represents the pubic hair of Neang Korng Reiy, the daughter of an ogress, who is the main character of this folktale. The two mountains represent Neang Korng Rei's breasts as she lay down and died on the bank of the river.
What?
This is a funny story. Near the mountains, there are two villages. These two villages, Kompong Leng, Leaving River, and Kompong Hao, Calling River, got their names from this story. If one climbs one of the mountains, one can see a giant mortar and a pestle. Nobody knows for sure when, where, and how they were put there. The story is that before settling down in this region, newcomers must find the mortar and the pestle and perform the ritual of pounding the rice. Then the spirit Nakta, who guards the mountains, will help them defeat all diseases that infest this area, and they will have a long and happy life. What follows is the story of how these mountains and rivers were formed. Once upon a time, there lived a very wealthy businessman called Satay. He and his beautiful wife did not have any children. One day, they both decided to make some offerings to the spirit, or Nakta in Cambodian. They lived under a sacred tree, Dong Trai. They had their servants prepare many dishes, including chicken, pork, beef, vegetables, drinks, and abundant fruit. Both husband and wife took the offerings to the Nakta and asked the spirit to provide them with healthy children. There's a picture. Soon after, Lok Satay, Mr. Satay, and his wife were blessed with 12 beautiful girls. They both loved their daughters very much and lived happily for a while. Suddenly, Satay lost all his fortune, so that he and his wife were no longer able to provide food for their beloved children. Every night, Satay and his wife tried to find a way to overcome this insoluble problem. "We are no longer able to raise our children," Satay said to his wife. "There is no solution but to abandon them. But I am sure that the Nakta who helped us have these children will look after them," Satay continued. After many nights of sadness and tears, his wife finally gave in. With broken hearts, Satay and his wife took their children deep into the forest, and while the children were asleep, abandoned them there. At sunrise, when the 12 girls woke up and noticed the disappearance of their parents, they all burst into tears. They ran in every direction looking for their parents. Soon, exhausted from crying and running around, their hearts full of sorrow and despair, they abandoned their search and moved on. They walked all day, feeding themselves with fruit and any edible plants found on their way. When they were tired, they looked for a big tree that could protect them from the heat, the wind, and the rain. so that they might rest until they regained enough strength to pursue their journey. After months and years, they arrived at one kingdom of the ogress queen Yaxanthomia. Yaxanthomia. This ogress queen had a daughter named Neang Korng Reiy. When the ogress Santomir, sit up, please. Oh, stop. When the ogress Santomir saw the 12 girls, she transformed herself into a beautiful woman and offered to provide them with food and shelter. Seduced by Santomir's sweet and alluring speech, the girls agreed to follow her. Santomir took them to her palace and gave them to her daughter Neang Korng Reiy as servants instead. When the girls learned that Queen Santomir was, how do I say that? Santomir was really an ogress, they were so frightened that they decided to escape. As soon as darkness fell upon the city, they quietly tiptoed out of their quarters and ran into the forest. They kept walking day and night through thick forests full of dangers and roamed by ferocious
Animals.
Through thick forests full of dangers and roamed by ferocious animals. They stopped only to sleep in the branches of trees and to find something to eat to still their hunger. Finally, they arrived at another kingdom ruled by a human king, Prebat Rot Soti. Prebat Rot Soti.
Yeah.
Exhausted, they took refuge under a big tree at the outskirts of the kingdom and prepared themselves for a long nap. Meanwhile, Prebat Rot Soti has his ministers, troops, and servants were hunting. It was a very hot day. The heat was almost unbearable. Around noon, the king called his people for a midday lunch and a little rest. They came upon the tree where the 12 girls were napping peacefully. Although their clothes were ragged, the girls were still very beautiful. Seeing them in such a state, the king took pity on them. He summoned his ministers and servants and ordered them to take the 12 girls to his palace, with orders that perfumed baths, beautiful clothes, and jewels be given to them. After they were fed and clothed, they were taken to the king's private quarters. The new outfits, coupled with exquisite jewels and coiffures, had transformed these girls into heavenly maidens, so that they resembled the lovely apsaras who resided in heaven. Their beauty enchanted the king, who immediately fell in love with all of them and took them as his wives. In the meantime, Santomir, having discovered the disappearance of the girls, sent her troops looking for them. When the troops brought back the news that the 12 girls had become the king's wives at the other kingdom, Santomir flew into a rage. She was determined to destroy them. That night, she transformed herself into a beautiful woman, more beautiful than any of the 12 girls, and set out to meet the king, Prebat Rot Soti. Fell in love with Santomir when he saw her. Without hesitation, he asked her to be his wife, and she accepted. After a few months, Santomir pretended to be ill. In connivance with the king's sorcerer, she told the king that the girls had bewitched her with the evil eye, and that she could not recover unless the girls' eyes were removed. Obsessed by his new wife, the king ordered his servants to cut out the eyes of the 12 girls, but the youngest one, Ningpo, had hidden. And since the king's men had not counted the girls, she was spared. The king sent them away to live in a cavern, unaware that they were all pregnant. Wow. This is quite a story. Santomir collected the eyes and put them in a silver bowl and sent it to her daughter's palace. Each girl gave birth to a child who was dead. Oh my gosh. This is an interesting story. However, the youngest and most intelligent girl, Ningpo, gave birth to a beautiful boy whom she named Riti Sen. Ningpo managed to raise her son until he was old enough to go out and look for food for them. She told her sisters that he was an orphan. Young Riti Sen went outside the cavern and played with other children. He was so clever that he made enough money to buy himself a rooster and engaged in cockfights in which his rooster almost always won. With his winnings, he bought food, clothes, and other necessities to make life in the cave more comfortable for his mother and aunts. Riti Sen grew up to be a very handsome young man. His reputation as a clever and good-looking young man reached Queen Santamia, who had him followed to the cave. When she discovered that Riti Sen was indeed Ningpo's son, she immediately set out to destroy him, to prevent him from taking over the throne in the future. She called her best servant and confidant and said, "My good friend, go to the stable, arm yourself with the fastest horse, and take this sealed envelope to Riti Sen. Tell him to hand carry the envelope to my daughter, Neang Korng Reiy, at my other kingdom." The letter was written as follows. To my daughter, if Riti Sen arrives at night, kill him at night. If he arrives in the daytime, kill him in the daytime.
Okay, so right now you want to follow more, you just follow the video and follow the page or the channel, you will get more story. So because this story is gonna be long, we want you to follow one important thing.
In English, we say to be continued.
Okay, to be continued, you're gonna be follow.
Bye, Samuel.
channel.
Wave.
Bye.
The dispatcher had no difficulty in finding Riti Sen, who obediently took the letter and the horse. He then bade goodbye to his mother and aunts and began his journey, without knowing that he was carrying his own death sentence. The travel was long, treacherous, and eventful. One day, feeling completely exhausted, he made himself comfortable under a big tree and fell soundly asleep. In the meantime, Pre and Treya, foreseeing Santamia's cruel purpose, sent a hermit to save Riti Sen's life. The hermit walked to the tree, opened the pouch containing the deadly message, tore it up into pieces, and wrote a new one saying, "When Riti Sen arrives, marry him at once." Having done that, the hermit sealed the letter, put it back in the pouch under the horse's neck, and left. Riti Sen woke up, refreshed. Joyfully, he continued his journey in search of Neang Korng Reiy. He finally arrived at her kingdom and asked to present the letter to her. After having read the content of the letter, Neang Korng Reiy was full of joy and ordered her ministers, servants, and the whole population to celebrate this happy occasion with all the pomp and magnificence it deserved. After the festivities, Neang Korng Reiy proceeded to show her husband her kingdom, her palace, and her people. One day, when they arrived at a small house within the palace, she hesitated. Noticing her hesitation, Riti Sen asked, "Dear wife, why are your hands trembling? What is there in this house?" To which Neang Korng Reiy replied, "Samuel,
It's okay.
beloved husband, in this house there is a silver bowl containing the eyes of the 12 wives of my stepfather, Prebatroti. In the same bowl there is a small bottle that contains a potion that can restore sight to the eyes when they are returned to the faces of the women. There is also a magic wand that can create mountains, seas, or whatever you desire." Riti Sen was deeply saddened by this news. He tried to hide his emotions from his wife. At supper, he ordered a sumptuous meal with wine, music, and dancing. They ate and drank until they were exhausted. At midnight, after having made sure that his wife was sleeping soundly, he stole the keys to the secret house, opened it, and took the silver bowl, the potion, and the wand. He quickly returned to the palace, kissed his wife lightly on the forehead, whispered a soft goodbye to her, and left. On his long journey, he met a hermit, the same one sent by Pre and Treya previously. The hermit said, "My dear son, take this branch with you and keep going forward. If your wife catches up with you, Just drop this branch. It will create a river between you and her. Go on, my child. Riti Sen was very grateful for the old man's advice and the precious gift. Without delay, he mounted his horse and continued his journey toward his father's kingdom. He was many hundreds of miles away when Neang Korng Reiy woke up and noticed the disappearance of her husband. She called all her ministers, confidants, and servants and set forth in search of Riti Sen. After several days, she caught up with him and begged him to come back. Ignoring his own sadness at the sight of his wife's distress, Riti Sen regretfully dropped the branch on the ground. This place is now known as Kompong Leng. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Kampong Leng.
Kompong Leng. Dropping river. Samuel, please don't touch your toes right now. Suddenly, waters rushed from every direction, creating a big river separating him from his wife. Neang Korng Reiy called her husband in vain from the other bank. This place is called Kompong Hao. Is that how you say it?
Kampong Hao.
Kompong Hao, calling river. Tears poured down her cheeks when she realized that he would not return to her. She told her ministers, servants, and confidants to go back to the palace. In despair, she lay down on the bank of the river and died. Legend said that the spot where she died raised two mountains, representing the breasts of Neang Korng Reiy, whereby the name of the mountain is Korng Reiy. Fighting his sorrow, Riti Sen waved his magic wand, which carried him high in the air with his horse, toward his father's kingdom. When he arrived, he denounced Queen Santamia's cruelty. The latter was later killed by the king's men. He ordered his mother and his aunts be brought back to the palace, where he restored their sight and their former status as the king's wives. After having done all that, he bid goodbye to his father, mother, aunts, and left to become a Buddhist priest. It was believed that Riti Sen was Buddha's reincarnation.
Okay. The end, the story. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Don't forget to be subscribed. You like this video. Thank
If
you.
you like this video, we'll make more videos.